Last week in a coffee shop in London, I watched someone who spoke perfect English lose all their confidence because of just one single word.
They had asked, "Where's the washroom?" And instantly, everyone around them knew they weren't American. And today I'm going to show you 12 words, just like this one. Words that you're probably using without even realizing they're giving you away as a non-native speaker.
Hey there, English learners. Welcome back to English Flow. I'm Hope.
And I'm Mark. But what I just shared with Hope actually happened last week, and it perfectly illustrates today's topic.
Have you ever been speaking English perfectly fine and then said one single word that immediately made everyone realize you're not a native speaker?
Well, there are 12 specific words that English learners use every day that instantly scream, "I'm not from here." And you're probably using at least half of them without even knowing it.
Picture this. You're at a coffee shop in London, New York, or Sydney. You've been chatting with locals, feeling confident about your English. Your grammar is correct, your pronunciation is clear, but then you ask for directions to the washroom in America, or you say something is quite good in the wrong context, and suddenly that invisible barrier goes up. People start speaking slower, their tone changes, and you realize one word just gave you away.
This isn't about major grammar mistakes or heavy accents. These are subtle word choices that native speakers would never make. But English learners use them constantly because textbooks and teachers often don't explain the cultural nuances behind everyday vocabulary.
Today, we're going to expose these 12 words that are sabotaging your fluency and teach you what native speakers actually say instead. We'll show you why these words mark you as an outsider and give you the exact alternatives that will make you blend in seamlessly.
By the end of this episode, you'll recognize these red flag words immediately and replace them with natural alternatives that make you sound like you've lived in English-speaking countries your whole life.
Ready to discover which words have been giving you away? Let's begin.
Let's start with word number 1, and this is probably the most common giveaway of all.
Word number 1, toilet in American contexts.
When English learners need to use the bathroom in America, they often ask, "Where is the toilet?" This immediately signals that you're not American. It's not wrong grammatically, but it's culturally jarring.
What non-natives say, "Where is the toilet?" I need to use the toilet. The toilet is broken.
What Americans actually say, "Where's the bathroom? Where's the restroom? I need to use the restroom."
The word toilet in American English refers specifically to the porcelain fixture, not the room. Using it to describe the whole room sounds foreign to American ears.
Let's practice natural bathroom vocabulary.
Excuse me, where's the restroom?
It's just down the hall, past the elevators.
Thanks. Is there a public restroom on this floor?
Yes, there's one right by the main entrance.
See how restroom flows naturally? In contrast, asking, "Where's the toilet?" would immediately mark you as non-American.
Regional note. In the UK, toilet is perfectly normal, but in the US, it sounds foreign. Know your audience.
Word number 2, quite used incorrectly.
English learners love the word quite because it seems sophisticated, but they often use it in ways that sound unnatural to native speakers.
What non-natives say, "The food was quite good. I'm quite tired. It's quite expensive."
What natives actually say, "The food was really good. I'm pretty tired. It's pretty expensive."
The problem is that quite in American English often means very, but with a slightly negative undertone, or it can mean somewhat depending on context. Non-natives use it thinking it means very in a positive way.
Let's practice natural intensity words.
How was the movie?
It was really good. The ending was amazing.
Compare that to, "It was quite good." This sounds like you're damning it with faint praise.
Better alternatives. Really, pretty, super, totally. Casual contexts.
Word number 3, washroom in non-Canadian contexts.
Washroom is perfectly normal in Canada, but if you use it in the US, UK, or Australia, it immediately identifies you as either Canadian or non-native.
What marks you as foreign? Where's the washroom? In non-Canadian contexts.
What sounds natural?
US, Where's the bathroom, our restroom?
UK. Where's the loo, toilet?
Australia. Where's the toilet loo?
Let's practice region-appropriate vocabulary.
American context. Excuse me, where's the bathroom?
Right over there, next to the gift shop.
British context. Where's the loo?
Just up the stairs, first door on your right.
Using the right regional vocabulary makes you sound like you belong there.
Word number 4, rubber for eraser in American context.
This one causes awkward moments. In British English, rubber means eraser. In American English, rubber refers to something completely different that you don't want to ask for in a classroom.
What causes confusion? Can I borrow your rubber in American context?
What Americans say, can I borrow your eraser?
Let's practice safe classroom vocabulary.
Do you have an eraser I could use?
Sure, here you go.
Thanks. I made a mistake on this problem.
No problem. Those math problems are tricky.
In the UK, rubber for eraser is fine. In the US, stick with eraser to avoid embarrassing misunderstandings.
Word number 5, anyways, instead of anyway.
Many English learners add ands to anyway, thinking it sounds more natural. It actually marks you as non-native because educated native speakers almost never say anyways.
What sounds non-native? Anyways, let's move on. Anyways, I think we should go.
What sounds educated? Anyway, let's move on. Anyway, I think we should go.
Let's practice correct transition words.
That movie was terrible. Anyway, what do you want to do now?
How about we get some coffee and forget we ever saw it?
Anyway is the standard form. Anyways exists in some dialects but sounds uneducated in professional contexts.
Word number 6, also at the beginning of sentences and speech.
Written English and spoken English have different rhythms. Starting spoken sentences with also sounds textbookish and unnatural.
What sounds textbook? Also, I think we should consider the budget. Also, timing is important.
What sounds natural? And I think we should consider the budget. Plus, timing is important.
Let's practice natural spoken transitions.
We need to think about the location, and we should consider the budget too. Plus, timing is really important.
Compare that to also, we need to think about the location. Also, we should consider the budget. Also, timing is important.
The second version sounds like you're reading from a textbook.
Better spoken alternatives. And plus. On top of that, another thing is
Word number 7. How do you call this? Instead of, what do you call this?
this is a direct translation error that immediately identifies non-native speakers. Native speakers never ask, how do you call something?
What marks you as non-native? How do you call this in English? How do you call that thing?
What natives say. What do you call this in English? What's this called?
Let's practice natural question formation.
What do you call this tool?
That's a wrench. You use it to tighten bolts.
What's that thing called again?
A screwdriver. Here, let me show you how to use it.
What do you call, or what's this called, are the natural patterns?
Word number 8. Actual used incorrectly.
English learners often use actual when they mean current or real, but native speakers use it more specifically.
What sounds non-native? My actual job is boring. What's your actual opinion?
It sounds natural. My current job is boring. What's your honest opinion?
Actual in English emphasizes that something is real versus imaginary, not current versus past.
Let's practice correct usage.
What's your current job like?
It's challenging but rewarding. I'm actually really happy there.
The second actually is correct because it emphasizes surprise or contrast.
Word number 9, make sport instead of play sport.
This is a common verb confusion that immediately marks non-native speakers.
What sounds foreign? I make tennis. Do you make soccer? I make basketball every weekend.
What natives say, I play tennis. Do you play soccer? I play basketball every weekend.
Let's practice sports vocabulary.
Do you play any sports?
Yeah, I play tennis twice a week. What about you?
I play basketball on weekends. Want to join us sometime?
That sounds fun. I'd love to try.
Play is the correct verb for sports. Make is never used this way in English.
Word number 10, sympathic instead of nice or likable.
This word doesn't exist in English, but many learners use it thinking it means nice or friendly.
What doesn't exist? He's very sympathic. She seems sympathic.
What natives say? He's really nice. She seems friendly. He's very likable.
Let's practice correct personality descriptions.
What's your new boss like?
She's really nice and very approachable, easy to work with.
That's great. My last boss was friendly, but pretty demanding.
The correct words are nice, friendly, likable, pleasant, never sympathic.
Word number 11, eventual when you mean possible.
English learners often use eventual to mean possible, but it actually means happening at some point in the future.
What confuses natives? It's eventual that it will rain, meaning possible.
What makes sense? It's possible that it will rain. It will eventually rain at some future time.
Let's practice correct usage.
Do you think it's possible we'll finish early today?
Maybe. We'll eventually get everything done, but I'm not sure about today.
Possible means maybe it will happen. Eventually means it will definitely happen, just not immediately.
Word number 12, borrow when you mean lend.
This directional confusion immediately identifies non-native speakers because natives never mix these up.
What sounds backwards? Can you borrow me your pen? I borrowed him my car.
That sounds right. Can you lend me your pen? I lent him my car. OR. Can I borrow your pen? He borrowed my car.
Remember, you borrow from someone. You receive. You lend to someone. You give.
Let's practice the correct directions.
Can I borrow your charger for a minute?
Sure. Do you need me to lend you the cable too?
That would be great, thanks.
Borrow equals you receive. Lend equals you give. Never mix them up.
Now let's talk about why these word choices matter so much beyond just sounding native.
These words are cultural markers. When you use the right vocabulary for your context, you're not just communicating information, you're signaling that you understand the culture and belong in the conversation.
Using region-appropriate vocabulary also affects how people respond to you. When you sound like a local, people unconsciously treat you as an insider rather than an outsider. Doors open more easily, conversations flow more naturally, and opportunities present themselves more readily.
Here's something important. Different English-speaking countries have different giveaway words. What marks you as foreign in America might be perfectly normal in Britain, and vice versa.
Let's practice region-specific vocabulary substitutions.
American alternatives:
Restroom, not toilet.
eraser, not rubber.
Really good, not quite good.
Pretty tired, not quite tired.
British alternatives:
Toilet or loo is fine.
rubber for eraser is correct.
Quite good is perfectly natural.
Brilliant instead of awesome.
Universal alternatives that work everywhere.
What do you call this? Not how do you call this?
Play sports, not make sports.
Nice friendly, not sympathic.
Correct borrow/lend directions.
Now let's address the psychology behind these mistakes. Why do English learners consistently use these words incorrectly?
Most of these errors come from three sources: direct translation from native languages, textbook English that doesn't reflect real usage, and mixing up different English varieties.
The solution isn't just memorizing corrections, it's developing an ear for what sounds natural in your target variety of English.
Here's a practical exercise. Pay attention to how native speakers around you use these words. You'll notice patterns that textbooks never teach.
For example, Americans rarely use quite the way British speakers do. British speakers use toilet in contexts where Americans would never use it. Canadians say washroom, where everyone else says something different.
These aren't mistakes, they're cultural choices. But using the wrong cultural choice in the wrong place marks you as an outsider.
Let's practice some complete conversations using natural word choices.
American context conversation. Like,
Excuse me, where's the restroom?
down the hall past the water fountain.
Thanks. This conference is really good so far.
I agree, the speakers have been great.
British context conversation.
Where's the loo?
Just round the corner, next to the lift.
Cheers! This conference is quite good, isn't it?
Yes, brilliant speakers today.
Notice how the same conversation uses different vocabulary choices based on the cultural context.
Now let's practice some real-world scenarios where these word choices actually matter in professional and social contexts.
Imagine you're in a job interview in New York and you ask, "Where's the toilet?" instead of "Where's the restroom?" The interviewer might not say anything, but they've immediately categorized you as someone who doesn't understand American workplace culture. These small vocabulary choices affect how people perceive your cultural fluency.
Or picture this. You're at a networking event in London, and you keep saying things are really good and super awesome instead of quite good or brilliant. You sound enthusiastic, but also like someone who doesn't understand British communication styles, which tend to be more understated.
Here's what's fascinating about these vocabulary markers. They work subconsciously. Native speakers don't consciously think this person said washroom, so they must be Canadian or foreign. Instead, they unconsciously place you in cultural categories that affect how they interact with you.
The good news is that once you start using culturally appropriate vocabulary, the reverse happens. People unconsciously begin treating you as more of an insider, and conversations become more natural and opportunities more accessible.
For 1 week, pay attention to these 12 words whenever you hear native speakers. Notice which alternatives they actually use in real conversations.
You know what's really interesting about this, Mark? I've noticed that even advanced English learners who have been living in English-speaking countries for years still make these mistakes.
Absolutely. And here's why. Most language schools and textbooks teach international English, which doesn't account for these regional and cultural nuances. They'll teach you perfect grammar, but they won't tell you that saying quite good in California sounds completely different than saying it in London.
Exactly. And speaking of regional differences, let's talk about something that really trips people up. The word fanny pack versus bum bag.
Oh, this is a great example. In America, it's a fanny pack. In the UK, it's a bum bag. But here's where it gets tricky. The word fanny in British English is actually quite rude and refers to female anatomy. So if you're an American in Britain talking about your fanny pack, you might get some shocked looks.
That's such a perfect example of how these cultural vocabulary differences can create really awkward situations. And it's not just about being understood, it's about fitting in and not accidentally offending people.
Right? And here's another one that catches people off guard. Rubber in British English means eraser, but in American English, it refers to condoms. So you can imagine the confusion when a British person asks an American, "Can I borrow your rubber?"
These aren't just vocabulary mistakes, they're cultural landmines. And the thing is, you might not even realize you've made the mistake because people are usually too polite to correct you.
That's so true. People will just think, "Oh, they're foreign," and they'll unconsciously adjust how they interact with you. You might not get invited to the after-work drinks, or people might explain things more slowly, or they might not include you in casual conversations.
And this brings up something really important, the psychology behind these word choices. When you use the wrong word for the context, you're not just making a vocabulary mistake, you're signaling that you're an outsider to that culture.
It's like wearing a suit to a beach party. Technically, there's nothing wrong with a suit, but it immediately tells everyone that you don't understand the social context. These vocabulary choices work the same way.
Exactly. And here's what's fascinating. Native speakers make these adjustments all the time. When I visit my friends in England, I automatically start saying loo instead of bathroom and brilliant instead of awesome. It's not fake. It's cultural adaptation.
That's such a good point, Hope. Americans living in Australia learn to say toilet instead of restroom. Brits living in America learn to avoid saying things are quite good when they mean really good. It's all about reading the cultural context.
And this is why immersion is so powerful. You don't just learn vocabulary from textbooks, you learn the cultural weight of words. You learn when to use formal vocabulary and when to use casual vocabulary.
But here's the thing, you don't need to live in an English-speaking country to develop this cultural awareness. You can develop it by paying attention to these patterns in movies, TV shows, podcasts, and real conversations.
Absolutely. Start noticing how characters in American TV shows talk differently from characters in British shows. Pay attention to the vocabulary choices, not just the accents.
And here's a practical tip. When you're watching Netflix or YouTube, turn on the subtitles in English. You'll start noticing these subtle vocabulary differences that you might miss when you're just listening.
That's brilliant advice. And here's another exercise. Find native speakers from different English-speaking countries on social media and notice how they describe the same things differently. Americans might say something is awesome, while Australians say it's heaps good, and Brits say it's brilliant.
These aren't random differences, they're cultural signatures. And when you start using the right cultural signature for your context, people unconsciously accept you as part of their group.
And that's really what fluency is about, isn't it? It's not just about perfect grammar or pronunciation. It's about cultural fluency, understanding not just what to say, but how to say it in a way that fits the social context.
Exactly. And the beautiful thing is, once you start noticing these patterns, you can't unsee them. You'll start hearing these cultural markers everywhere, and you'll naturally begin adjusting your vocabulary to match your audience.
Practice substituting your textbook words with natural alternatives. Instead of quite good, try really good or pretty good. Instead of washroom, use the regional appropriate term.
Record yourself having a practice conversation and listen for these giveaway words. You might be surprised how often you use them.
Most importantly, choose your target variety of English and stick with its vocabulary conventions. Don't mix American and British terms randomly. It confuses your listeners and marks you as uncertain about the culture.
Remember, those 12 words we covered today are vocabulary choices that immediately mark you as non-native. But now you know the natural alternatives that will make you sound like you belong wherever you're speaking English.
Thanks for joining us on English Flow today. If this episode helped you identify your vocabulary giveaways, we'd love to hear about it in the comments.
Until next time, keep the conversation flowing, keep choosing words that fit your context, and remember, you're not just learning vocabulary, you're learning to belong.
Sound natural, and talk to you soon.